Hello, my name is Chayton, and I plan to prove to you today that animal testing is, without a doubt, completely unnecessary in the modern day. What if I told you that every year, well over 115 million animals are put through excruciating tests for results that may not even be accurate? Well, the sad truth is that is exactly what happens to so many animals of all shapes and sizes, even to a lot of the animals we call pets. When I first found out about this, it completely devastated me, as I'm a major animal lover. And with the research I've done, I've seen just how horrible animal testing can really be. What goes on in those labs is almost unbearable, so much so that you can barely stand to even hear about it. There's so many reasons why animal testing is just blatantly not needed anymore, that it should be obvious why it should be stopped. That is why I propose animal testing should be outright banned due to the fact that it is very cruel to the animals involved. Testing on animals is far less than accurate, and there are multiple alternative methods available now. While many people know about the cruelty associated with animal testing, only a fraction of people know just how deep that cruelty goes. The circumstances those animals are subjected to are truly horrific, and all for results that don't really prove much, as animals' reaction to a test will rarely match a human's reaction. For example, so many tests involve starvation, dehydration, force feeding, burning, and so many more horrible things, and many times it's just to see the same data they've already confirmed at this point. In fact, according to PETA.org, of the average 115 million animals used for animal testing worldwide, over 100 million of those animals die. That's about 90%. That figure is insane to think about. For comparison, that's about a third of the entire US population. And even those that do survive the test are often left mangled and near unrecognizable. While most all of the tests on the animals conducted are incredibly cruel in some way, that doesn't even begin to measure up to the fact that over 300,000 on average of their tests in a given year are focused entirely on inflicting extreme amounts of pain on various subjects. Even more sickening is the fact that animals protected by the Animal Welfare Act are not restricted in any way from animal testing. That means animals we consider very intelligent are subjected to the same torturous tests as the rest of the animals. Perhaps even worse is the cruelty. Perhaps even worse than the cruelty is the fact that these tests may not even be conducted for a good reason. When I first heard the figures for the accuracy of animal testing, I was completely taken aback. They seemed ridiculously low, so low they almost seemed fake. I mean, I know they weren't, but it just seems so strange that we would use something for so long and still have it be only barely functional. In fact, according to LiveScience.com, over 92% of drugs successfully used in animal testing still failed clinical trials. That means less than 8% are successful. Imagine getting a bottle of 100 pills and the bottle saying only 8 of these pills will do anything good, or even anything at all. The fact of the matter is, animals just aren't the same as humans, and thus are going to react differently than us to the same stimuli. Another factor that makes animal testing so extremely unreliable is the fact that many of the diseases tested have drastically different effects in how they react to our body and an animal's body. For example, the AIDS virus has a detrimental effect on the health of humans. On monkeys, however, that same virus is absolutely harmless. And that's on monkeys, an animal that shares 98% of our DNA. So imagine how differently it will react to an animal like a rat, an animal that barely shares any of our DNA, which is the primary animal we use for many, many tests. How can we ever expect to get any kind of reliable results when we get how can we ever expect to get completely reliable results from a source that we can get reactions from that are that different than ours? Much of the time, scientists will try to fix this accuracy problem by testing the parts of an animal's body that are more closely related to our own, like certain organs. However, this presents its own set of this presents its own set of problems, as the parts of an animal's body that are more close that are as different parts of the animal's body will always interfere with the parts being tested. As all this is cruel and ineffective testing is just amplified by the fact that there are several alternatives to it. In a lot of cases where people think animal testing is necessary, they tend to think so only because they believe there is no alternative. But the fact is there is not only several alternatives to animal testing, but many of which are incredibly more accurate because of their use of real human tissues. Some of these types of testing methods use cell cultures or the cells of people grown in a lab to make miniature versions of human organs. These tests have already been shown to be leagues more accurate than their animal alternatives. And according to crueltyfreeinternational.org, they already have made miniature versions of the heart, lung, kidney, and stomach. They've even developed a way to link them all together in a device they call a human in a chip. And cell culture is not the only alternative that is far more accurate than animal testing. There's also tissue samples. The amazing thing about tissue samples is that they're not only incredibly accurate, but they can be collected post-mortem. You see, when a person dies, their cells do not automatically die. They can last up to several days or even weeks in some cases. That means that tissue samples can be harvested from a deceased person without any loss of accuracy in testing. And the great thing is, because of the easy availability of human tissue samples, they can be harvested for next to nothing, far less than the cost of purchasing massive quantities of animals. Not to mention the fact that with real human tissues, we won't have to worry about differences in DNA affecting test results. And with today's modern technology, we can even make computer simulations that can test circumstances that would be impractical or even impossible to test in the real world. With all these alternatives available, why would we choose something as cruel and inaccurate as animal testing? With all this evidence against animal testing, I think it would be obvious why the practice should be banned and replaced with an alternative form of testing. I mean, why would we keep using animal testing when the process is so inaccurate, when there are so many alternatives that are available? And more than that, why would we keep using a system that is just so inherently cruel to the animals it's subjected to? Look, I love animals. I have a dog and a lizard at home that are like family to me. And just thinking about animals just like them being experimented on right now in the most deplorable ways you can think of is devastating. It confuses me why we have so many alternatives to animal testing that is so much more accurate and efficient, but we still choose to remain using animals as a primary means of testing. But maybe with enough evidence of the effectiveness of animal testing alternatives, we can convince the government to completely switch over from animal testing. And that's about it. I've always had issues with animal testing ever since I found out about it, and I'm happy to talk about it because to me, the more people aware of the issue, the better.